So welcome to the Provider AWS meeting, Subproject update meeting. Please adhere to the CNCF code of conduct, be respectful, and let's start. And we'll start with subproject updates. So let's start with CCM here.
Okay. Yeah, so I opened a pull request for an EDE test runner, and I decided to use the kubetest 2 kops deployer and tester that they have. I had to make a couple small changes to get it to work. And basically, I want it to run any EDE.test binary that I give it. And I think the way that I made that work was to have it respect one of the environment variables that kubetest 2 normally uses. It's like the kubetest 2 run dir or something like that. So anyway, I was hoping to get maybe Peter to review that and see if it's reasonable. I'm not sure if he's here, but I will throw. I don't think I opened the kubetest 2 PR yet, but I'll just throw mine in the CCM update, and then yeah, if anybody wants to look at that, who is familiar with the kubetest 2 stuff in kops, see if that's a reasonable use of it. It's the other thing that's like, it's kind of I wouldn't say like difficult to install, but it would be nice if we eventually kind of split it out into its own repo if we want to support a use case like this. So yeah, just some thoughts, but that's it for CCM.
It's just quickly to come on that. I think it's a good idea. I think it is its own Go module, so it should be more consumable than. But yes,
that is true. I did consume it. It wasn't impossible or anything like that. Yeah.
Good. Yes, if there's anything really simple we can do, then definitely. But yeah, we can certainly talk about the bigger, like, where should this live in the end thing, like, as we go on. But if there's any small things like that, we're obviously happy to fix them as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nick. So let's move on to the KOps update. John.
Actually, Justin, could you take care of that? I'm a little disconnected this week.
Absolutely. So a bunch of things happening. Primarily, I'd say in terms of AWS progress, ongoing support for IPv6. I don't know if anything has happened particularly in the last 2 weeks, but trying to get that rolled out through the various components. But I don't think anything has particularly changed in since our last update on that front.
Yeah, I have a ticket in with AWS on NLB IPv6 endpoints not getting health checks, and I'm waiting for some response from AWS now.
Is that an internal ticket, or?
It's a support ticket through my employer.
Got it.
So
okay.
It's gotten through first level and gotten to escalation.
Okay, cool. Well,
Are there any issues of the way that the health check is documented, or like anything that you faced with the health check?
So the issue I'm facing is NLBs with IPv6 IP targets. I'm not getting the health checks. They're just failing.
At all? You are not getting it at all?
No traffic.
Because the preserve IP is disabled by default. So like, did you try opening up the ports for your VPC siders or the subnet, like the load balancer subnet siders instead? Did those things work? Or?
The security groups give access to the siders. Yeah.
Oh, so it's like it's not the security group issue. It's like you don't see any packets at all. Okay.
That's right. Well, it might be a security group issue, but the security groups are open to 0, to :0.
Okay, definitely, because because we also support IPv6 targets, so we haven't heard much customer issues around that area. So, and we checked on the CNI, right? Last time, what was the CNI that you were using for this?
I believe it's Cilium.
Cilium, okay. Not sure about Cilium though, because our solution is like tested with VPC, Amazon VPC CNI. We haven't tried Cilium ourselves. Not sure if it's because of that. They do use the native VPC IPs, right? Like the IP ranges from
Yeah,
the
it's a
VPC.
prefix. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I can send you the ticket ID if you like.
Sure, I will also take a look, because if it doesn't work on EKS, it will eventually come to us, right? So something that would be interested as well. Sure, you can Slack me the ticket ID.
Yep.
Thank you. So for the load balancer controller, I'm preparing for the 2.4.0 release. I have code out for all of the changes. The PRs are out. It's going under review. So we plan to be code complete by early next week. And we have AppSec review pending. We'll be able to release after the security review is done. I'm working on the security review as well. And for the load balancer project, like we use the GitHub projects. So for each release, like we identify what issues we're gonna, or what features we're gonna do. So we keep that up to date. And that's how, like, once all the targeted issues are done, we'll be able to release.
Okay, I have a pull request open about querying IMDS on IPv6 only subnets. So I'd appreciate if that could get looked at. I also sent a similar PR to the AWS Go client, but that's not this group.
Oh, you mean the IMDS? Okay, sure. I can definitely take a look at that as well. Yes.
Yeah,
And
basically,
for service default target, you don't want that merged, right? Because I'm taking some of the changes from there for the load balancer class support. So
I have that as do not merge because of the problem I'm having with NLBs. I can't test it right now. So that's why it's still a work in progress.
So we'll take it after 2.4.0.
Yeah,
Anything that we
that's
need
fine.
to do in that. Sure. Thank you. That's all I have for the load balancer controller. For the next one, Karpenter. Anybody from Karpenter?
I guess Alice is not here, and I'm not actively working on Karpenter at the moment. But I do know there was a recent release of .06.0, so it's the next minor release in like 2 months.
Last meeting, I heard interest from Karpenter about meeting with kops about launch templates, custom launch templates and such. Would it be worth trying to actually organize a summit?
Sure, I can sync up with Alice and see where we are, because there was in the Karpenter working group, there was a lot of discussion regarding the launch templates, and actually there is a pull request out from Sukit on that. That we are actively reviewing and collecting feedback. I can share it here.
Okay, I'll get in touch with Ole Marcus and see if we can find a time to have a Zoom meeting.
Sure, sounds good. And here is the pull request we have out for the launch template, where the Karpenter's team is actively collecting feedback around the launch template support in Karpenter.
Okay.
Wait, I do see Ole has provided some feedback on the PR.
Well, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pratik. I have come to the end of the list that I was going through. Anybody has anything else that you want to bring up, please?
I actually realized I forgot something sort of actually important beyond KOps. But in KOps, we just created the first E2E job that uses the first artifact mirror or artifact redirector that is being stood up. This is something that Working Group K8s Infra or SIG Release are working on to effectively make serving artifacts redirect so that they ideally come from the local cloud, so users get faster downloads and the cost of serving them is lower because the cost has become substantial. It actually worked great. So I mean, it's not doing anything yet, and it's not real, but there is progress on that front. So I guess the call to action for the community would be to start thinking about being able to swap out at some point in the future k8s.gcr.io for another TBD DNS name, I guess.
Thank you, Justin, for the update. So I just put the line item. If you have any details, feel free to update that.
So
Meeting
Justin,
minutes, yeah.
how does that how does that affect us in terms of like what kind of artifacts are we talking about, and when when would this matter?
So right now we are only talking about, or we're primarily talking about container images. So k8s.gcr, if you're pulling your kube API server from k8s.gcr.io/kube API server, which open source likely is, EKS I believe is not, GKE does not. Everyone has, most of the providers I believe have sort of lockdown builds type thing. But if you're running the open source builds, then you pull from this, and currently that is served by a project hosted in Google Cloud, funded by the CNCF, funded by a donation to the CNCF by Google. So round and round, but a lot of that cost, so when serving traffic from Google to Google, the price per, the dominant cost is bandwidth or transfer. When serving from Google to Google, that is fairly inexpensive. When serving from Google to AWS, or when an AWS VM pulls from Google, that is comparatively expensive for the CNCF. It's also, less efficient than it could be. And I think the hope is that there is a separate request going into AWS to consider funding an S3 bucket or a set of S3 buckets to provide in-cloud mirrors. And obviously, if any other clouds wanted to do the same thing, that would be great. It's still early days for the mirroring project, so I think that they're focusing very much on getting the first one set up and focusing on the highest dollar spend, which is Google to AWS is the biggest payer, or the biggest dollar payer, and so that's the top priority. But yeah, the intent is that TBD, but there would be a large set of mirrors, and by pointing to, I think the proposal is images.k8s.io, but it could be containers.k8s.io. You would then be redirected to your local, or ideally local, mirror, but you would still be doing the initial resolution from images.k8s.io. So you're not, it's not a trust issue, because after that first request, everything is SHA-256 hashed.
Could it work with like the ECR, public ECR? Like, would we be able to make use of the public ECR for these, or?
So I think there is a discussion in Working Group K8s Infra about this. They meet every other Wednesday, having met 2 days ago. I think the quick answer is it's less ideal, because if I recall correctly, even a public ECR you still have to authenticate to. So it's harder to redirect to the ultimate, it's the blobs you want to redirect. It's harder to redirect to the ultimate blob, but it's not impossible. But it would be a little bit weird because the mirror would effectively log into ECR, request the blob, get it's a redirected cloud formation, cloud F something, not formation, but anyway. Your mirror service, whatever it's called. Sorry, it's a redirect to the big the AWS CDN, and it would basically forward that redirect to the client. So it's a little weird, but it would work maybe.
Okay. So you're looking for like the S3 buckets directly to store the artifacts and then redirect users. Okay.
S3 buckets are very natural, and like that would make a lot more. That would be sort of the obvious answer. CloudFront is the one I was looking for. If like we somehow knew, like if we could like figure out how to go straight to CloudFront without doing that intermediate login, that might be fine as well. But I haven't looked into detail about that, and I don't know if Anyway, so it's but yes, I think that AWS, the people at AWS that are looking at it have suggested, hey, it would probably be better for AWS if we used ECR, but the way it was thought of, S3 is a better match. So that discussion, I think, is happening.
Thanks for the update, Justin. So Peter has an item here for the cloud provider issues.
Yes. I have a request to label nodes with a topology label that is the availability zone ID rather than the name. The use case is we have some cross-cluster communication that spans AWS accounts, and we want to keep the traffic zonally isolated. But it's a bit tricky to do that when the accounts zone mappings don't align. And so if we could label nodes with the zone ID, that can provide us a more consistent way to do that. And so part of me is wondering if we can implement this and agree on a label, but I'm also wondering if this is something that other cloud providers have similar things for, and maybe this needs to be something that's more agnostic.
To my knowledge, GCP does not randomize or shuffle. Everyone's US Central one is the same. US Central 1A is the same, is my understanding. I don't know about Azure or any of the other clouds.
Yeah, I don't know about other clouds, but it definitely seems useful in AWS given that we randomize. So yeah, I'm very open to a solution here.
I guess we would bring it up in, I don't know who owns topology.kubernetes.io, right? Like if it was aws.topology.kubernetes.io/zone ID, I think that might be an easy one. We just have to make sure that we clear the name with whoever sort of owns it, which honestly, it could be networking. So we could ask networking, but yeah, the first step is for us to, if we agree that like this looks useful, that sounds good, and then we can try to figure out who.
Yeah,
who
I mean, the easier path will be to do something AWS specific rather than a topology label, because if it's not going to be something useful across all clouds, then I don't know that, like we can't, only support a Kubernetes IO label in, just an AWS cloud provider repository and have no mention of it in the rest of Kubernetes. But we could do a AWS specific version of this label, I think.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. I just don't know what exactly to use.
Yeah. Well, neither do people at AWS, because I think we've got like 3 different versions of these like labels. There's like something.amazonaws.com, and some of them are just .aws. So but yeah, regardless,
We could use like k8s.aws, maybe topology.k8s.aws if it's specific to us.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Kubernetes.io here, right? If it's only specific to AWS, or we brought out, do we want it to be standard across all the providers? And for the labels, like, would it have to stick to a version, or we can introduce like anytime we want?
In the past, yeah, I've seen like these topology labels started out in a beta form and then were declared GA after a certain amount of time. So we could do a similar thing with labels that are specific to cloud provider AWS.
Maybe we bring it up at the cloud provider meeting, the general one on yesterday or whatever, Thursdays, is it?
2 days ago. 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely can. Yeah, just to kind of throw it out there. I don't know. Andrew, do you have any thoughts on this one? I see that you're here.
I'm sorry, I wasn't fully paying attention. So
basically just so AWS randomizes our availability zone IDs or the names that you see. And so we have a concept of an AZ ID. And this proposal here is to have a topology label that is, instead of just like zone, it's zone ID. And I'm thinking this might be more specific to AWS, given that Justin just said that Google does not do the same thing. So we're just talking about, is this something that we want to bring up at cloud provider, or is this something that we just create an AWS specific label for?
yeah, so I do know, so there's an official KEP that Tim Hawken wrote about topology labels. Let me dig it up. It's here. And so it has come up before about the practicality of having like a third topology tier, like for the sake of like, we can just call it like subzone for now, but like one layer below zone. And like a common use case that people have asked for is using like subzone to actually represent like physical machines. So like you can have a topology layer for like physical machines, but then in the AWS case, if there was a subzone, we can make that like the sub availability zone or whatever you guys are doing. Like, I think the problem that you might run into by doing an AWS specific one is like, there's an argument for portability, or like if you ported that same deployment into another cloud or another environment, like you lose that topology information. But if you have like a generic one, it might port over well. I don't know how practical it is in this specific case though. But like, if you all think it'd be useful to like add a third topology tier, and then use the availability zone ID for that, like that could be a conversation worth having. But in the absence of that, yeah, it kind of sounds like kind of have to add your own label at your, I guess, at your own risk though.
Yeah, this isn't a new tier. It's more of an alternative to the zone label. Like it's not any smaller in scope. It's just an alternative meaning.
So could you just use the zone label and just set an availability ID instead of the actual zone? Or does that break things?
It would break some of my use cases. We have deployments that have hard-coded node affinity to specific zone values, but maybe that can be communicated during a release or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that breaking a lot of things. Okay. Yeah, I don't have more to add than that, but like, yeah, like if we want to have the conversation about adding a generic subzone label or something like that, yeah, we can. I think that's more of a SIG architecture kind of discussion. But otherwise, yeah, I think you're better off just like adding your own label if you need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this is more of an AWS specific thing, given that it sounds like we're probably the only cloud that randomizes the names. So I think we should maybe start going down that path. But Peter, if you want to bring it to SIG Cloud Provider, we can do that too.
Yeah, I can see if I can attend that next meeting.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Peter. So you have one more item here on the open sourcing EKS kubelet server certificate approval controller. So if Nick have anything on that area.
Yeah, this is just a question for Nick.
Yeah. So I did get to like I collected basically just like all of its behavior in a doc for you, but then we never synced up on it. So let's sync on that and then see, because that I mean I'm not working on the open source process right now, so let's see if we can at least help you there. And then yeah, I mean I think we still want to do it long term, but we just don't have the resources to like push it through right now. There's changes that need to be made and stuff. So yeah, let's set up a meeting outside of this. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Thanks.
Cool.
Alrighty. Thanks everybody, and have a great rest of the day and a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining. Bye bye.
Thanks for hosting, Kishore.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.